Has the geography of Africa played a role in shaping its history and present state? This question may seem simplistic, but the answer is far from simple. Geography is often a silent actor in the drama of history, exerting its influence in subtle and often overlooked ways. In the case of Africa, geographic traits have had a profound impact on the continent's development. Most of the continent is more than 1,000 feet above sea level, and more than half of Africa is more than 2,000 feet above sea level. That means its rivers and streams must plunge down from those heights on their way to the sea. This means that only smaller, non-ocean-going boats can travel only a limited distance on most African rivers because of cascades and waterfalls. Water transport was crucial in developing a culture in touch with enough other widely scattered cultures to make use of societal advances during the thousands of years before there were trains or automobiles. This isolation, in turn, has contributed to a kind of cultural fragmentation. African languages account for 1/3 of all the languages in the world, even though African peoples are only about 10% of the world's population. While this diversity is a rich tapestry that adds to the continent's allure, it has also made Africa vulnerable. Throughout history, conquerors have exploited these divisions, using the classic divide and conquer strategy to subjugate the people. The cultural fragmentation, a byproduct of geography, has thus shaped Africa's tragic history, leaving a legacy of conflict and division that persists to this day. But it's not just about the past. These geographic challenges continue to shape the present, influencing everything from economic development to political stability. However, it's important to remember that geography is not destiny. It presents challenges, yes, but it's not the only factor at play. Other elements, human elements, have also played a significant role in shaping Africa's story. The leaders who emerged during the continent's fight for independence, the policies they implemented, and the role of the West in shaping Africa's trajectory, all these human factors have left their mark. So geography has played a significant role, but it's not the only factor. Let's turn our attention to the human aspect. How have the actions and decisions of people shaped Africa's history and current state? As we trace the timeline of Africa, we reach a pivotal moment in the 1960s. This was the era of independence, a time when African nations began to break free from the shackles of colonial rule. The air was filled with promise and hope. It was believed that self-governance would bring prosperity and growth. Among these new leaders were individuals returning from the West, armed with education and brimming with ideas. They were hailed as the harbingers of a new dawn. However, their education was filled with theories untested in the African context. They lacked both the common sense of the African masses and the technological and economic experience of the West. Like a ship set on a course without a compass, these leaders began implementing policies based on these untested theories. The results were disastrous. These policies, instead of uplifting the people, led to an escalation of poverty and tyranny. They distorted economies, exacerbated social divisions, and entrenched corruption. It was as if the hope of independence had been replaced with a different kind of bondage. Leaders like Julius Nyerere of Tanzania were celebrated in the Western media for their rhetoric and visions. The ground reality painted a different picture. The people of Tanzania were driven deeper into poverty and tyranny. Nor was he alone. The leaders who genuinely brought about economic advancement and civil peace were often overlooked or disdained. The focus was more on grand visions rather than actual results. But these leaders were not alone in shaping Africa's present. They were part of a larger narrative, one that involved the Western world as well. While the leaders had a significant role, the Western world also played a part in Africa's current state. How has the Western world influenced Africa's history and current state? This is a question that demands a deep dive into the annals of history and a keen understanding of the present. The Western influence on Africa has been profound, and it's not all been for the better. Let's start with the media, the lens through which the Western world often views Africa. The media has played an instrumental role in shaping the narrative around African leadership. Rather than focusing on the tangible outcomes of policies, the Western media has often praised African leaders based purely on their rhetoric and visions. Alongside this, Western interventions have also had a considerable impact on Africa. These interventions, although well-meaning, have often been misguided and led to unintended consequences. They've been like a surgeon operating with a dull scalpel. The intent to heal is there, but the damage caused is considerable. Some argue that these interventions may have even caused more harm than the colonialism of yesteryears. These interventions often came in the form of policies and strategies imposed on African nations. But these strategies, borrowed from Western contexts, didn't always translate well in the African setting. The result? Policies that exacerbated poverty and tyranny, rather than alleviating them. What's perhaps more damaging is the way these interventions have undermined the agency of Africans. Rather than being seen as individuals capable of shaping their own destiny, they've been treated more like mascots, their efforts and initiatives often stifled by the control of foreign powers. Clearly, the Western world's influence has been significant, but what does all of this mean for Africa's future? The answer isn't clear-cut, but one thing is certain. The road to progress will require a reassessment of the Western world's role in Africa. It's a long journey, but one that must be taken. So, what can we glean from Africa's history as we look towards its future? As we sift through the sands of time and the chapters of Africa's past, it becomes evident that the key to its future lies in the people themselves. Africans are not mere mascots of their continent's struggles, but individuals with unique perspectives, talents, and abilities. Their agency, their capacity to make decisions and enact change, is a potent force that should be acknowledged and respected. The narrative of Africa's future should not be dictated by external forces, but rather, should be written by Africans themselves. Their efforts and initiatives must be unshackled from the constraints of their leaders and the interference of the Western world. The liberation of their potential, and the freedom to chart their own path is critical. It's about shifting the paradigm from paternalism to partnership, from control to collaboration. It's about recognizing that Africans, like all people, have the innate ability to solve their own problems, to shape their own destinies, and to create a future that reflects their aspirations. In conclusion, Africa's history and current state have been shaped by both geography and man, and its future lies in the hands of its people, free from external control.